Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. My name is Darian Brooks. I am 32 years old. For days before I pulled 3 people out of a burning apartment building and ended up all over the news, my girlfriend sat in my truck after a dinner party, turned toward me with that cool, disappointed look she had perfected over the last few months, and told me I was holding her back. She said I was intimidated by her success. She said she was trying to build a life that matched where she was going, and I was still the same man I had been at 23. She said she needed a partner with more ambition. What made it cut so deep was not just the insult. It was that for the first year we were together, she had loved introducing me to people. She used to slip her hand into mine and tell strangers I was a firefighter with this bright, proud smile, like being with me meant something to her. By the time she finished speaking in that truck, I understood that somewhere along the way, what she had once admired had become something she thought she had outgrown. I had been on the job for 9 years. At my department, being an engineer means I drive the rig and operate the pump, and before that I spent 6 years assigned to a ladder company. It is not glamorous in the way people imagine. It is long shifts, sore knees, smoke in your clothes, and a body that keeps receipts for every bad decision you made while trying to get to somebody in time. I make about $68,000 in base pay, and in a good year overtime pushes me to around 82. I am not poor, but I'm not the kind of man anyone at a polished corporate dinner party would call impressive based on income alone. I come home smelling like soot and diesel. I have scars on both forearms that I do not point out and do not explain. I eat reheated leftovers at odd hours and sleep through parts of the afternoon when other people are answering emails and arranging networking lunches. Still, I have always been proud of what I do. It is honest work. It matters. It asks something real of me. My girlfriend, whom I will call Janelle, worked in marketing for a technology company in Columbus, Ohio. She was smart, organized, fast on her feet, and very good at reading a room. When we first met, that was one of the things I liked most about her. She could talk to anybody. She had this warm, polished energy that made people feel included, even while she was quietly steering the whole conversation. When we had been together only a few months, she came to one of our station barbecues, laughed with everybody like she had known them for years, and helped one of the guys' kids build a paper airplane at the picnic table. On the drive home that night, she reached over and squeezed my arm and said she loved that my world felt real. That was the word she used. Real. She said everybody in her office acted like every email was life or death. But at my station, people did things that actually mattered. I remember glancing over at her at a red light and thinking I had found somebody who saw me clearly. For a while, she did. She posted pictures of us at charity runs and station open houses. She called me her hero in that teasing way couples do when they are happy and have not yet learned how cruel they can become to each other. When my schedule was rough, she would bring food over and leave it in my fridge with notes stuck to the containers. When she had a bad week, I drove across town after a 24-hour shift just to sit on her couch and listen while she vented about clients, office politics, and people taking credit for work she had done. I showed up at her company holiday party, even though I hate small talk with men who wear soft hands and expensive watches and ask questions they do not care about. I helped her move apartments in August heat. I spent 2 Sundays assembling furniture in a place that was not mine because I liked the look on her face when something heavy and frustrating got easier. She once cried in my kitchen after a fight with her mother about money, and I stood there with one hand on the small of her back and told her we would figure things out. That is why what came later landed the way it did. I had not been casual with her. I had not kept one foot out the door. I had loved her seriously. The shift started after her promotion. She became a senior account manager, got a bigger title, a much bigger salary, and suddenly had access to a different kind of room. Better restaurants, better events, more conversations about equity, growth, positioning, image. At first I was proud of her, and I told her so. I took her out to celebrate, bought a bottle I normally would not buy, and sat there grinning at her like an idiot while she talked about her future. I meant every bit of that pride. The problem was not that she became more successful. The problem was that somewhere in that climb, she started measuring everything by whether it looked successful. She did not insult me outright in the beginning. She just started making observations that had teeth hidden inside them. She would mention somebody's husband who had made partner. She would talk about a friend whose boyfriend was pivoting into consulting. She would ask whether I had ever thought about doing something with more upward mobility. She framed it all as concern, as if she was trying to help me imagine a bigger life. But every question carried the same message underneath it. What you are now is not enough. I remember one night in particular. We were in her apartment kitchen, and I was rinsing plates while she scrolled through emails at the counter. She said one of her coworkers had bought a house in a new development outside the city. Then she said, almost casually, that it was wild how much easier life seemed to get once people crossed into certain income brackets. I told her that was probably true. Then she laughed and said, sometimes I look around and feel like everybody is accelerating except us. I turned off the water and asked what she meant by us. She said she did not mean anything bad. She said she was just thinking out loud. Then she kissed my cheek and changed the subject. That became her pattern. She would say something sharp, let it land, then smooth it over before I could fully answer. If I pushed, she said I was being defensive. If I let it go, the next comment came easier. The dinner party was where all of that stopped being subtle. Her vice president hosted a gathering at his house in a wealthy neighborhood outside the city. Before we left, Janelle stood in front of my mirror adjusting an earring and told me I should wear a blazer. I said I was fine in a button-down. She gave me that tight little smile and said, okay, but let's just keep things polished tonight. On the drive over, she said these people could be intense, and maybe I did not need to get into the details of work right away. I asked her what I was supposed to say when people asked what I did. She laughed, but not warmly, and said I could just say I worked in public safety. She said it sounded cleaner, more professional. I looked at her for a second, waiting for her to grin and tell me she was joking. She did not. I asked whether firefighter had suddenly become an embarrassing word. She rolled her eyes and said I was making it bigger than it was. I let it go because I did not want to fight on the way there. The house looked like the kind of place built for people who never worried about replacing anything. Clean lines, expensive art, low music, a dining table longer than any room I'd lived in growing up. Everybody there seemed to work in some version of strategy, law, finance, or product development. They used words like scale and leverage and portfolio, so often it sounded rehearsed. I tried. I really did. I asked questions. I listened. I smiled at stories about mergers and launches and a ski trip in Colorado that sounded less like fun and more like a competition over who could casually spend the most money. Then one of the men asked me what I did. I said, I'm a firefighter. He leaned in immediately, actually interested. He asked what kind of call stayed with me the longest. He asked whether apartment fires spread faster than house fires. He asked if his family should keep extinguishers upstairs as well as in the kitchen. It was the most sincere conversation I had all night. Across the room, I caught Janelle watching me with a smile, so strained it looked painful. She held it together until we got in the truck. Then she closed the door, turned toward me, and let loose. She asked whether I had any idea how that had looked. She said everybody else, there was talking about acquisitions and leadership pipelines and future opportunities, and I was giving a field lesson on smoke travel and fire extinguishers. I said the man had asked me questions because he was interested. She snapped that he had been polite, not interested. I asked what exactly she wanted from me. That was when it all came out in the clearest form it ever would. She said I was intimidated by her success. She said that every time she tried to think bigger about life, I dragged us back down into the same routines and the same limits. She said she was trying to build something that reflected where she was headed, and I was content staying in a job that had not changed since my 20s. She said she needed somebody who matched her ambition. I let the silence sit there between us for a few seconds. Then I said, very calmly, that she was right. She blinked like she thought she had misheard me. I told her she didn't need someone who matched what she wanted, and I needed someone who did not look at my work like a social liability. I said we should stop wasting each other's time. She backpedaled immediately. She said that was not what she meant. She said I was twisting her words. She said she was only trying to have an honest conversation about the future. But I had heard too many smaller versions of the same speech over too many months. There was no confusion left. When we got back to my apartment, I told her I thought we needed to take a real step back from the relationship. She called me dramatic. She said I was overreacting to constructive feedback. I said constructive feedback was not telling your partner that his life's work made you look bad in front of your boss. She stared at me for a long time, like she was waiting for me to cave the way I had before. When I did not, she grabbed an overnight bag she had left at my place and said she was staying with a friend. I watched her leave and felt awful, but not uncertain. Those are not the same thing. A decision can hurt and still be right. My shift started Monday morning at 6. By 2 that afternoon, any room I still had in my head for relationship drama was gone. We got dispatched to a fire at a multifamily apartment building on the east side. Heavy smoke was already pushing from the second and third floors by the time we arrived. People were outside yelling. A woman on the sidewalk was screaming that her children were still inside. There are moments on a scene when time seems to split into two speeds at once. Everything is happening too fast, and every second is thick enough to walk through. My captain and I made entry through the stairwell, while another crew started searching from a different side. Visibility was terrible. Heat was building. My job in that moment was not to be impressive. It was to move, listen, trust training, and keep going. We found the kids on the second floor in a bedroom, tucked low and terrified. A little girl and a younger boy, small enough that getting both of them down the stairs fast was possible, though awkward. I got them out of medics, turned, and heard over the radio that there might be an older woman still on the third floor. Another firefighter, and I went back in and found her in a rear bedroom where smoke had gotten ahead of her. We got her out too. Not long after that, conditions inside got dramatically worse. A few minutes later, and that whole rescue would have turned into a recovery. Afterward, I did what everybody in my line of work does when people start using words like hero. I try not to think about it that way. The children were alive. The older woman was alive. The crews did their jobs. That was the story. But a local news crew had been nearby covering an accident and rerouted to the fire. They got footage of me coming out with the children, soot all over my face, helmet sitting wrong, adrenaline carrying me forward before my brain had really caught up. By the next morning, the clip had spread far beyond local news. My captain did the on-camera talking because he is better at that, and because the department prefers it. My name still got used. My face still got shown. People love a rescue story, especially one with children and visible flames. I woke up to hundreds of notifications. Family, academy friends, people I had not heard from in years. My lieutenant texted me a link and told me not to let fame ruin me. My mother left a voicemail crying. The whole thing felt strange and loud and unreal. Janelle had not contacted me once after leaving Thursday night. Not Friday. Not Saturday. Not Sunday. Nothing. Then Tuesday at 11:43 in the morning, after the clip had been circulating for hours, she texted, "Oh my God, are you okay?" I stared at the message for a second and answered that I was fine. She replied immediately and asked if we could talk. I told her I was still on shift and would deal with everything later. I did not call, not because I forgot, because after the fire, when the adrenaline dropped off, I was too drained to hear her voice. People romanticize this job in a way that tells on them. They think the hard part is the moment of action. Sometimes the harder part is what happens after, when the scene is done and your body decides it is safe to tremble. I sat in the locker room after we cleared, elbows on my knees, staring at the floor while my hands shook hard enough to make me angry. I went home, showered twice, slept like I'd been knocked out, and woke up Wednesday evening to find out that Janelle had been busy. She had reposted the rescue clip to her Instagram story and captioned it like she was the devoted woman behind the man in the video. She referred to me as her boyfriend, present tense, as if nothing had happened. As if 4 nights earlier she had not told me I was beneath where she was headed. As if she had not gone silent until other people started cheering my name. It would have been insulting enough on its own, but it got worse. A mutual acquaintance who worked at the same company later told me that one of Janelle's co-workers recognized me from old pictures and asked if she was dating the firefighter from the news. Instead of correcting the record, Janelle leaned into it. She told a whole story about how terrified she had been when she saw the fire coverage, how proud she was, how she had always known the man she loved was capable of extraordinary things. She was not just claiming me again. She was curating me. She was packaging the exact same job she had treated like an embarrassment and turning it into a status accessory because public opinion had changed its value. That night she texted me, saying people at work kept asking about me, and her vice president thought it would be amazing if I came to the next team happy hour. I read that message several times because I could not believe the nerve of it. Days earlier, she wanted me introduced with a sanitized label so I would sound less blue-collar. Now that there was national coverage and a rescue clip, she wanted me in the room so her coworkers could admire her proximity to me. I texted back that I thought public safety sounded cleaner. She replied with a laughing emoji and said that it had been different, that she had just been nervous that night, and that I should not hold one awkward evening against her. One awkward evening. As if the comments, the comparisons, the months of erosion had not all led straight to that truck conversation. I did not respond after that. The next day, she showed up at my apartment with takeout from a Thai place I like. This time I had to let her in because she knocked until I opened the door. She came inside with a bag like she was arriving to smooth over a misunderstanding, not answer for a betrayal. She kissed my cheek before I could step back and said she missed me. Then she set the food on my counter and told me we should forget the stupid fight and move on. I asked her which fight she meant, the one where she called my career an embarrassment in nicer words, or the one where she accused me of holding her back because I was not ambitious enough. She said she had been stressed. She said she did not mean it the way it came out. I told her she had been saying versions of the same thing for 6 months, and the dinner party was just the first time she stopped decorating it. Her eyes filled. She said she was proud of me. She said seeing the footage from the fire had put everything in perspective. I asked her which version of her was supposed to be real, the woman who flinched when I said firefighter in front of executives, or the woman reposting my rescue clip with hearts on social media. She said the woman sitting in front of me now was the real one. I told her no. The woman sitting in front of me now was just the one who had realized my job looked impressive once strangers approved of it. She cried harder then, frustrated and cornered. She asked whether I was really going to throw away 2 years over one mistake. I told her I had tried to make the relationship work when she was cutting me down in private, and she had not cared then. The only thing that had changed was that a camera caught me doing what I've always done. She accused me of punishing her for being honest. I said honesty would have been admitting that she was embarrassed by me before she spent months trying to reshape me into something she found more presentable. What she had done instead was train me to apologize every time I did not fit the image she wanted to project. That landed, because her face changed when I said it. She knew it was true. She grabbed the food and left with it. And when the door shut behind her, I felt more tired than victorious. But I also felt something cleaner than anger. I felt done. Over the next 10 days, she tried every route except the honest one. She called mutual friends and said I had changed after the media attention. She told people I had become cold, arrogant, and impossible to talk to. One of my closest friends, a paramedic named Leon, called me laughing and said his wife had just heard from Janelle that I had turned into an egomaniac because of one news clip. Then Leon said that any man who had shown up to a barbecue the month before in Crocs and a stained t-shirt was not in immediate danger of becoming full of himself. I laughed harder than I had in days. Then her mother called my mother and told her I was breaking Janelle's heart by refusing to forgive a misunderstanding. My mother, who has the patience of a retired school nurse and the spine of reinforced steel, listened quietly and then said that if Janelle truly believed a man who runs in a burning buildings was not good enough for her daughter, there was not much else to discuss. When my mother repeated that conversation to me, she sounded offended on my behalf in a way that almost brought me to tears. The ugliest thing Janelle did came after that. The mother of the 2 children we had rescued gave a brief local interview, thanking the department. She mentioned me by name. It was emotional, sincere, and painful to watch in that good way. Truth can be painful. Janelle reposted that clip too. She wrote about how proud she was of the man she loved and said she would always support me. That was the moment something in me hardened for good. It was one thing to use my face, my name, my work. It was another to use a family's terror and relief as scenery for her redemption performance. I called her immediately. She answered fast, probably expecting softness. I told her to take the post down. She asked why I was being cruel. I said those were real people who had just survived something awful, and she was using them to decorate a relationship that no longer existed. She said she was only expressing how she felt. I said no. She was exploiting a mother's gratitude to make herself look loyal. Then I told her that if she kept posting about me, I would correct the story every single time somebody asked. The dinner party, the public safety comment, all of it. She went quiet. Within an hour, the post was gone. I thought that would finally embarrass her into stopping. Instead, she found one more boundary to cross. She reached out through Instagram to a probationary firefighter at my station who had been on the scene the day of the fire. She told him she was worried about my mental state and wanted to know whether I had been acting strangely at work. The probie did exactly what he should have done. He took screenshots and brought them up the chain. My lieutenant called me into his office and slid his phone across the desk. Then he looked at me and said, very evenly, that my ex contacting our people was over the line and needed to end. Seeing those messages lit me up in a way the social media posts had not. My firehouse is sacred to me. Those are people I trust inside places where hesitation gets you hurt or killed. Her dragging herself into that space because she could not tolerate losing access to me felt invasive in a new and uglier way. I texted her once, told her that contacting anyone at my station again would force me to take legal steps, and said that this was the last time I would communicate with her. She replied that she was only trying to help and that shutting out someone who cared about me was my loss. I blocked her on everything and never answered again. After that, the consequences started arriving without any help from me. Her office story began to unravel because people are not stupid, and even image-conscious environments still run on timing. The coworker who had first asked whether she was dating the firefighter went back through old posts and noticed that all of Janelle's pictures of us had been archived before the fire. The only new ones mentioning me were the ones she put up after the rescue made news. Somebody else remembered her calling herself single at a holiday mixer weeks earlier. Another person remembered her joking once that she could never date a man whose entire personality was smelling like smoke and eating at weird hours. Nobody confronted her dramatically. Real fallout is usually quieter than that. It was the lowering of voices when she walked up, the private looks, the subtle cooling, the way people stop trusting the story a person tells about themselves once they catch them rearranging facts in real time. Apparently, her vice president even made a comment during a team meeting about authenticity maturing in both brand management and personal credibility. And from the look he gave her, several people understood exactly what he meant. I heard bits of all that through mutual friends and through Leon's wife, who still moved in some of the same professional circles. I did not go digging for any of it. I did not need revenge. I needed distance. That was the part Janelle never understood. She thought withholding attention would force me to chase her, and reclaiming me publicly would flatter me back into place. She did not understand that once I saw the whole thing clearly, attention from her stopped feeling valuable. Around the same time, the family from the fire sent a handwritten thank you note to the station. The little girl had added a drawing of a fire truck with a stick figure in a helmet beside it. The older woman's daughter included a message saying her mother would not be alive if our crew had hesitated. I read both in the locker room, sat down on the bench, and let myself feel the weight of it without fighting it. That was the contrast I kept coming back to. Janelle needed audiences, optics, and endorsements to decide what mattered. The people whose lives had actually been touched by what happened did not need any of that. Their gratitude was plain. It did not perform. It did not posture. The news attention faded fast, which was fine by me. A reporter called the station about 2 weeks later, asking whether I wanted to do a follow-up feature. I declined. My captain gave a short statement on behalf of the department instead. I'm not built for camera work. I am built for the job. Janelle made one final attempt to reach me about 3 weeks after I blocked her. She found my personal email, probably through an old shared contact list or some account setting I had forgotten about, and sent a message 6 paragraphs long. I did not read it closely. I did not need to. The parts one saw were enough. She said I had changed. She said the media attention had shown her a side of me she did not recognize. She said she missed the man she fell in love with, the humble one, the grounded one. I remember laughing out loud at that, because it was almost elegant in its hypocrisy. When my work was invisible, it made me too small for her. When other people saw it, suddenly I was too proud. There was never going to be a version of me she respected more than she wanted to manage. I marked the email as spam and kept going. Through the grapevine, I heard she started dating a man in finance not long after. Good for her. I mean that sincerely. Some people do not want love as much as they want alignment with the picture in their head. If she found someone who fit that picture better, then maybe she finally got what she had been reaching for all along. Her mother still talks badly about me, from what I hear. Says I used the media to humiliate Janelle. That would be impressive considering I never once got on television to discuss anything except the fire itself, and even that was through department channels. But people like her mother need the world arranged in a way that protects the version of their child they prefer. I no longer care enough to correct it. That is one of the quiet gifts of getting all the way free from somebody. Their spin stops matching. Their version of events becomes just weather happening somewhere else. The part one will admit, because it is true, is that what Janelle said in that truck stayed with me longer than I wanted it to. Not because I believe she was right, but because hearing contempt from somebody you loved can leave a bruise in places nobody sees. There were a few nights afterward when I was lying in bed after shift, too tired to sleep properly, and her words would come back. I would hear that line about ambition and wonder whether some part of the world really did look at men like me and see a ceiling instead of substance. I would picture those polished inter-party smiles and think about how easily people assign worth based on title, salary, and polish. Then I would go back to work. I would check the rig. I would pull hose. I would watch my crew move with that unspoken rhythm built over years. I would walk into places full of panic and smoke and know, with complete certainty, that none of the people inside cared what I sounded like at cocktail hour. They cared that I came. They cared that I knew what I was doing when I got there. My captain asked me one afternoon, after things had finally gone quiet, whether I was all right. I told him I was getting there. He nodded and told me to go inventory equipment because that was cheaper than therapy and twice as immediate. In our house, that counts as tenderness. He was right, in his way. Healing did not come in one speech or one dramatic realization. It came in routine, in showing up, in doing the work in front of me, in letting people who respected me treat that respect like the most ordinary thing in the world. It came in my mother sending me home with leftovers and pretending she had made too much on purpose. It came in Leon shoving a sports drink into my hand after shift and telling me I looked less haunted than the week before. It came in the note from the little girl and the drawing tucked inside my locker where I could see it before every shift. That is what finally sealed the crack Janelle's words had made. Not applause. Not revenge, just proof, over and over again, of what mattered. A few weeks ago, the mother of those children brought homemade chocolate chip cookies to the station. The box had a message written on the top in uneven crayon. Thank you for saving us. You were brave. I kept the lid. It is in my locker now beside the drawing of the fire truck and the card from the older woman's daughter. Sometimes I look at those things before a shift starts, not because I need validation in the way Janelle needed it, but because they remind me of something simple that the last year tried hard to blur. The value of a life is not determined by how well it performs in upscale rooms. The worth of a man is not measured by whether strangers in expensive kitchens can package him as progress. I loved a woman who forgot that. Maybe she never truly knew it. Either way, I know it now with a clarity I did not have before. She lost credibility, access, and whatever version of me she thought she could reshape. I lost a relationship I had once taken seriously, but I gained something better than being admired by the wrong person. I got free of her opinion, so that is where it landed. I still work my 24s. I still drive the engine. I still come home smelling like smoke. I still have scars on my forearms and a body that reminds me of old calls when the weather changes. The job did not become more noble because cameras showed up. It was always noble. I did not become more worthy because strangers on the internet called me a hero. I was always enough. The only real change is that I stopped handing my sense of worth to someone who confused image with character. That is the ending, if you want one. Not me winning in public. Not her crashing in flames. Just me standing in my own life without shrinking for anybody. Me understanding that love without respect is only appetite wearing a nice coat. Me knowing, finally and without hesitation, that the right person would never need a rescue clip to recognize the man in front of her. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.